I think we're good. So good evening, everybody, and good afternoon or even good morning to some of you connecting from really far. So today we have a great session ahead of us for this blockchain committee of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. Basically, I'm Emma Pecenicic, so I'm the co-chair of the blockchain committee with Kat here, who just joined me as co-chair recently. And Kat will introduce herself as well. So basically, to set the stage, the Bitcoin network consumes more electricity than Sweden, than Ukraine, than Poland. We can hear a lot of, it caught a lot of mainstream attention in the headlines. But in fact, the analyzed electrical needs for the network is, wait for it, 15,940 terawatts, which is about comparable to Egypt. Transaction costs can be perceived as an equivalent of 59 days of US household average power consumption, according to DG Economist. But is the amount of energy consumed important? Isn't it how this energy is produced of more relevance? How are we able to produce this in a more sustainable way? I hope that the panel today will be able to answer all the questions that we have on sustainable Bitcoin mining. So with me, I'm super excited to have Romain Nouzareth from Canada Computational Unlimited, CCU for short name. Jameson Nuni, COO of Compass Mining, who is replacing, unfortunately, Whit, who has been caught in basically a change of airlines flights because of COVID. It's not been easy. So we are really happy to have you, Jameson, replacing him, and Mustafa Yilham from Bixin, who is one of the first miner in the world, I would say, from a long time ago. So basically, and of course, Kat, my co-chair. So to start, I will let just the panelists introduce themselves a bit and what their company are doing before we jump straight into the panel. Romain, do you want to introduce what CCU is doing?
Sure. Thank you very much, Emmanuelle. I'm very happy to be here, everyone. My name is Romain Nouzareth. I am French originally. I'm 46 years old. I moved to New York 17 years ago. I've been naturalized American 7 years ago. I've been in tech all my life, 25 years creating companies, mainly in the internet world, the gaming world, online gaming world, what we call casual gaming, not casino gaming. And in 2017, with my brother Matthew and other partners, we decided to start mining, Bitcoin mining, obviously. And from New York City, we thought that Quebec and Canada was a great place to start our operation. So we contracted a 20 megawatt power contract that is coming from Quebec. It's an electricity and energy that's 100% renewable. It's mainly hydroelectricity. So we have developed also an ESG practice in our company because we believe environment is one of the most important subjects for the human race. Even so, we will see very quickly that the Bitcoin consumption is very negligible in comparison to the energy consumption in the world. Recently, we decided to become a public company. So I'm finally happy to say that tomorrow, on the 16th, we will start trading on the Canadian stock market under the ticker SATO, as an homage to Satoshi Nakamoto. And the idea from being listed and becoming a public company is to be able to grow faster, bigger, also to develop more green or renewable initiative around mining. And we want to follow the path of other companies that are listed today, like Bitfarms, Marathon, Riot, Untitled Hive, in order to bring more answers to and more solution and more mining power to the industry.
Thank you, Romain. Mustafa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and good morning and good evening for everyone. I myself joined Bixin about 2-3 years ago, but Bixin as a company have been starting to mining with shareholders since like 2013, 2014 officially, but the founder started mining actually in 2009, which put him as one of the earliest miner in the space. prior to what's happening in China, regulatory-wise on mining, we ran about 300 megawatt per hour, which amount to 2.5 to 3% of the entire global Bitcoin network. Currently, we are in the process of redistributing the hash power globally in Central Asia, US, and other jurisdictions, which I'm sure we'll get into in the following conversation.
Yes, thank you. Jensen?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, Emma. So Jameson Nunny, I'm the COO of Compass Mining from Columbus, Ohio, in the heart of the Midwest. Most of my career has been in energy, so supply, futures, running demand response programs, and then also startup experience, as well as international trade. Fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole in 2017. So not quite as early as Mustafa, but never too late. And it completely bit me. And the overlap of mining and energy is just a beautiful one. So I took my talents to South Beach, so to speak, and joined with Whit and team as soon as I saw the model. So Compass Mining, we essentially allow anyone to mine Bitcoin. We connect customers with ASICs and hosting space. So we allow anybody, whether they're a retail customer, you're a family office, or a large institutional customer, to receive the economies of scale and access to mining equipment. And we're in 20 facilities, 7 countries, and we're aiming to hit 500 megawatts of new capacity next year. So we're pumped.
Great. So to start this panel, just to start with decomposing a bit the components and the drivers around the energy consumption. I think what is important now to know is that according to the Bitcoin Mining Council, now 50% of the energy, electricity mix in producing Bitcoin is coming from sustainable energy as end of Q2, and end of Q1, it was actually 36%. So we can see a huge jump. Romain, maybe can you explain, why this jump and all, as I said, the components and the driver of energy consumption behind mining?
Yes, okay, that's a large question. I'm going to try to be concise. I think the first thing that is important to me is that we always go back to the white paper of the Bitcoin. And one thing that is important is that the main reason why the Bitcoin was created is to create a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And when you want to do that, the important part is a peer-to-peer, because it means it's a decentralized network. It means, as you know, there is no central institution or any third party who can control the way we manage our finance and the way we manage Bitcoin. In order to do that and to achieve this kind of feasibility in terms of mathematical and code, you need to relate on different kind of algorithm and cryptography. And the way it was designed originally in the Bitcoin was to develop a consensus system, which is exactly what the blockchain is. Every 10 minutes or so, we write a new set of information into the block. And in order to do that and to secure it, we need to have a proof of work mechanism, which is the base and the principle of the blockchain and the Bitcoin blockchain. And to write this block and to write information in the block, you need to use energy. You need to show this proof of energy of this proof of work. So energy in Bitcoin is not a bug, it's a feature. This is what is securing our finances. This is what's securing the network. So it's important to keep going and to continue with the proof of work in the Bitcoin. Now to go back to the question also, which is to understand how much energy it consumes and why this jump between the renewable energy. The first thing that I would say is that mining with renewable or sustainable energy is inevitable. It's inevitable because the price is going to be less expensive. It's already less expensive in lots of the parts of the world, and it's going to be even more less expensive in the future. In our world, in the mining world, our worst enemy is what we call the miner capitulation. meaning miners are mining with a loss, and they can't continue mining, so they stop and they close shop. And we don't want that to happen. And in our business as mining, around like 80% of our costs are electricity costs. So obviously we, the miner and the industry, we will go toward more renewable energy because it's good for the planet. That's one thing, but also because it's good for our finances. So we will go more into that direction. Now, the reason also why we see this jump, mainly if you look at the Bitcoin Mining Council data, which is a council that we joined. We were one of the first companies to join when it was created by Michael Saylor and other miners. I think it was the end of Q1. We are going to publish very soon, I think, Q3 results. So it's going to be interesting to see the evolution. I would say one of the first reason why it's increasing is because we miners are getting organized. To use a quote again from Michael Saylor, decentralized, not disorganized. And this is what we are trying to do via this council, and we want to provide more numbers. And the first numbers that we show, and I think it's important to start with this, even before talking about the energy mix that we use in mining, I think it's important to note that less than 0.1% of the energy consumption in the world is about Bitcoin. Though the media attention that we're getting about Bitcoin is bad for the planet is completely disproportionate in comparison to what we use actually in our energy and in the energy. So yes, environment is important. I think this is probably one of the most important challenges that the human race has to face, but pointing Bitcoin is not the solution. However, I'm very happy it happened because it shows that in our industry, we are working toward more sustainability, more renewable, more energy reuse, because one thing that is also happening today is that we are reusing waste energy. So mining is about using energy constantly, 24/7, which is the best way you can use your grid and the energy. We are using energy that was wasted before, and more of the energy mix, as we've seen, is renewable. So I think we are going in the right direction. I'm going to stop here because if not, I'm going to spend the full hour talking about it. And I want the other people with me to speak also.
Yes, maybe before we jump on the next question, Mustafa, can you explain us a bit, what is taking more of the consumption of energy, mining the transaction or just maintaining the overall operation system, behind that? Can you let us know?
Sure. And also to help elaborate the question, right? I do think like with Bitcoin Mining Council, you cannot deny that Elon Musk helped a little bit there to also push overall mining greener, because he did start the topic and let both mining world and outside world to pay more and more attention into Bitcoin mining renewability. I do think I very much agree with Romain on 2 points. The first one is, as miner, we're always looking at cheap energy. And I think people have this consumption that fossil fuel is cheap, which in fact it's definitely not the cheapest form of energy. If you look at China as an example, miners in China traditionally spent time in 2 regions the most, Sichuan and Xinjiang. And the reason why we spend most time in Sichuan is because Sichuan actually have probably the cheapest energy in the entire world during the summertime, because it's using excessive and waste hydro energy, which you can say is almost 100% renewable. And I think as we expand globally to South like Africa, Russia, Canada, and the States, you do find this pattern which renewable and waste energy and excessive energy are generally much cheaper compared to fossil fuels. So I do also agree that mining inevitably in the coming years will become more and more green.
Great, thanks. So if we move on a little bit, unless Jameson, would you like to add to that before we move to the next question?
No, go for it. We can stay on schedule.
Okay, all right. Well then, maybe you can answer the next question. Sorry, yes, Romain?
Can I just add one thing, which is important to me to note, is that the price of electricity, we count it in dollars per kilowatt hour. But I think there is also the price of the environment in it that is not priced in dollars. And this is also why the cost of fossil fuel is going to increase. It's not going to be only dollar cost, but it's also going to be an environmental cost that the society will not want to bear and that they will not want us to bear. And so I think going to renewable today is the right direction.
Generally, yes, for the planet. Okay, so on moving on slightly, and I'm going to direct this to Jameson because he has yet a chance to speak. So would you be able to share a little bit on your views, Compass's views on how mining operations can be set up in a sustainable manner? So given that you allow anyone to mine from anywhere, if someone wanted to engage in a green mining practice, what would you be encouraging them to adopt in their mining operations? Do you have a view on a type of renewable energy that would be more sustainable than any others? So solar versus hydro, again, depending on your geographical location. And then, I mean, I've heard a lot about how people use their Bitcoin operations to keep them warm in winter, keep their food up when they, when they're cats, when they can't get to a microwave. So, do you have anything to say, again, for these people who are maybe setting up their own rigs about cooling systems that they can use to maintain the life of their operations?
Got it. Okay. Yeah, lots to unpack there. So one of the questions was about the energy source. And so you mentioned solar. Solar is wonderful. From a carbon neutral standpoint, it's unfortunately intermittent. And so it's difficult for miners alone to run off of. Miners need to run 24/7. Solar only produces electrons when photons are hitting the panels. So you can overbuild solar operations and pair them with, natural gas gen sets and some grid connectivity, and then sell back, during peak hours. And that can be actually a very good opportunity for solar. Hydro is obviously wonderful from a 24/7 baseload perspective. And so we offer quite a few sites that have hydro. Depending on what your mix of energy is that you want to use, we offer it. And so you get to select your facility, and we can host it at that facility. If you want to mine at home, you can do that too. And we're offering direct shipments or at a facility of your choice. The other thing I'll mention is from a carbon neutral perspective, I think it was spoken about or a little bit earlier, is we're starting to see carbon neutral developers pull in miners to justify the capital expense and lower their levelized cost of energy. And so what this does, it's a perfect marriage. You have an anchor tenant that's a Bitcoin miner that's a guaranteed consumer of energy, and a guaranteed buyer of power, an off-taker. And so, if you're going to build in our case, we have a contract with a company called Oklo for 150 megawatts, starting in a couple of years, and they're a micronuclear reactor. But for Compass and customers like us, it would be difficult for them to justify that build out. So, we can just go right on site, wherever these are located, anywhere in the world, and be an off-taker. There's no transmission lines. It's directly to a facility or container. And so we're starting to see, as it was mentioned before, carbon neutral developers and energy producers. It's clicking, the light bulb's going off. It's improving their economics to have a Bitcoin miner on site, if not their own. And so I can tell you, we're speaking with some major folks in the industry, and it's just so fun for me, having been in energy for so long, to see this key being unlocked. So I totally agree. It's all going to be renewable. I mean, we talked about Elon Musk earlier, and pointing out Bitcoin mining. I would also say, we don't have ESG concerns on Tesla energy usage, although Tesla is pulling from the grid and it depends on the energy mix that is being produced on the grid. So I think it's a little bit of a double standard. I'll pull myself there and let anyone respond.
Okay, thank you, Romain. Mustafa, do you want to add to that, or are we happy leaving it with what Jameson had said?
I totally agree with you, Jameson. I think it's the right way to think and to see how the energy consumption is using. And I would say that the important is not the energy consumption, but it's the energy source. And as we said, this energy source is going more renewable. And it's also about our carbon consumption. And I believe there is a way where Bitcoin will even be carbon negative in the way we manage our energy, and the way we will also be more effective to managing our infrastructures, because one part is about the energy and the source of this energy, but the other part relies in two important flow of design of your mine. It's about your electricity deployment in your center, in your site, and how you manage your miners in terms of heat and in terms of management of your boards. And in order to do that, this is also, you can bring more effectiveness to the network, lower your cost, and lower your carbon footprint. For example, in our center, we do heat recycle. In winter, we heat the factory we are in, so that they can stop heating the factory. So it means less consumption energy, less money spent. And for us, it means a better reuse of the heat that we generate. So I think we're going to see more and more of this kind of initiative coming. It's not only about the energy that you receive, but how you use it and how you distribute it into your operation.
So picking up just on that, and on something you said earlier, Romain, about looking at the dollar cost on kilowatt per hour and other costs that relate to using fossil fuels. I mean, if we really break it down, renewable energy at the moment is more expensive than fossil fuels, and it's fine for us to engage in using renewables, whilst the profit margin that a miner can make when he's mining at Bitcoin's current prices, it's a great margin, right? Do you see miners still willing to shoulder those costs of going green if the profitability that they have access to from mining reduces?
I mean, first of all, I mean, renewable energy is sometimes, and most of the time, cheaper than oil or coal energy. I know miners who are mining with coal and oil, and they pay way more than we pay with hydroelectricity in Quebec. So I think it's important to note that. After that, are we going to see miners who will want to pay more to be more renewable? I think we will. First of all, because there is this ESG trend in the industry. It's also another way to get access to more capital, to get access to more investors and investments that are based around like the environment, the social, and the governance. It's the name of the ESG. And so I think we will see it. And a good example of that is Gemini, for example. Gemini, the trading and platform, they released a green index. It's very interesting what they do. They decided to buy out some carbon credits for the energy they are using related to the Bitcoin they have in custody. So the proof of work means that it's securing the network, it's using energy. Gemini said, okay, we own 100,000 Bitcoin in custody. It means that we are using 0.3% of the energy consumption. Let's buy out some carbon credits to that. So I think it's companies are willing to put their money into the subject. And I think we will see that more and more in the future. After that, are we going to want to pay more for energy if it's renewable? I'm not even sure the question will happen, because we're going to see energy provider coming into the game. So they will also provide us with some source of energy, some different prices, and we will see how it evolves in the coming months and in the coming years. But bottom line, renewable or waste, or using the wasted energy is what will fuel our industry, I think, in the coming years.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll move on then to a related subject, that of electronic waste. So this is a major challenge, and there are jurisdictions that are not looking to pick up other countries' waste going forward. How do you see that challenge being addressed? And for mining operations, how are they going to look to manage this? Open to the floor.
I do think that it is a. I mean, electronic waste is definitely a problem across probably any industry that deal with it. But I just think that you have to look at mining and compare it to other industry, right? And see how much waste it's generating. So if you look at a mining rig component, the only part I would say that is not recyclable is probably the chips. And at the chip level, currently Bitcoin mining is probably 1 to 2% of the entire TSMC production. TSMC is a company that produce a lot of the chips. And but other part of the mining machine is largely all recyclable. And the electronic waste processing is a huge industry in China too, as a lot knows. And so let's say very old generation, as we did decompose them, we do send them, a lot of them, to the electronic waste center, and a lot, I would say like majority part of the mining machine all get recycled.
Okay, great.
Thank
you very much.
If I can add something, go ahead, Jameson.
Yeah, I would say step one is just, we should not use a steamroller to crush perfectly good Bitcoin mining units, like we've seen in the media here. And I totally agree. The world has a waste problem, maybe a consumerism problem. And as of last year, China did stop accepting really recyclables trash from the US. And in the US, we are having problems figuring out where to put it all. A lot of people in the US think they're doing something wonderful by putting a plastic bottle in a recycling bin. And a lot of times behind the scenes, it's not actually happening. So it's a really fair point. I'll say the ASICs are getting better. They're going to last longer. The way in which they're being hosted is more scientific. And I think this will cut down on waste from that perspective.
And we have a saying in our industry, the S9, which is the old model of the miners, they don't die, they retire in Venezuela. So it's true that, for example, in our mining facility, we haven't produced any waste so far, because simply we're not throwing up all this S9, even if we wanted to. I mean, we are keeping them for the components, or we are reselling them. But as Jameson was saying also, which is something that is important, we are getting more effective in all the process of mining Bitcoin. It's not only about the rigs. It's about how we manage our infrastructures. It's how about we manage everything related to mining. And I think it's really going to be even more efficient in the coming years, because it's a business where you need to be efficient in all the steps of the production of the Bitcoin.
Thank you all. So
if we jump on the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, and proof of stake being so much more, I mean, you don't need to consume as much as proof of work, how do you see that, impacting, the Bitcoin mining industry? Do you feel that, you guys will have to extend your business into proof of stake? How do you see, the future in that? Mustafa, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I think proof of work versus proof of stake for us is more like I would say philosophical questions. The reason why I'm saying this is because proof of work, distribute the amount of token based on the work that you contribute to the network, right? The computational power that you contribute to the network. Proof of stake, on the other hand, distribute the token based on how much existing token you already staked to the network. So basically, I would say based on your existing wealth in the token dominated world. And if you look at like human society, you can argue like on the two sides too, like, is it better to have a society where people are getting, income based on their contribution, or is it better to have a society where, you're getting distribution based on how much you're staking to this network? Actually, I'll give you an example where this is playing out in the crypto world. If you look at proof of work, even though we started mining really early on, but anyone who come later can also join the network. Like say Michael Saylor, even though he came a bit later, but as long as he had the capital, he was able to join and also start contributing to the network. Proof of stake, I do think crypto exchange have a significant upside because they do, custody a lot of the token, and if they do decide to join the network, that could really, I think, put them like crypto exchange around the world as a major player in a proof of stake network.
Any comments from you, Romain? Yeah.
Well, I think it's an old debate in the industry. I mean, should the Bitcoin move into the proof of stake or stay with the proof of work? Even so, it's not really a debate. I mean, we miners, we work on a consensus. The proof of work is what gives us, it's a trilemma now. It's a three type of like important things, which is security, scalability, and decentralization. And the block has been created this way. And the proof of work originally created by Adam Back with Hashcash, which was a previous Bitcoin type of like a digital currency, was made originally as a anti-spam email system. So basically, this is, you need to verify by your work that you can do a transaction or that you can do something. So the proof of work will not change. I don't believe we miners will decide by consensus more than 51% of the vote to change that. It's a non-subject. And even so, if you talk to a Bitcoin mining conference or to a Bitcoin maximalist, and if you tell them proof of stake, they will look at you like, what are you talking about? I mean, there is no way we're going to work that way. However, I believe proof of stake will continue developing greatly. I mean, everything related to DeFi, Ethereum is moving to proof of stake very soon. We are seeing other protocols like Solana and others who are already using this. One thing that is really working for Bitcoin is that the system has been working extremely great for the past 11 years. No security issues, no scalability issues. It's working, it will continue to work. And for that, we will continue using the proof of work. In Bitcoin, however, we have in some ways the beginning of our proof of stake, which I believe is a form of a Lightning network, which is a second layer or second tier of the blockchain that has started to emerge in the past few years, which will allow to have a very fast and almost no transaction fee transaction, that's interesting, but a very low transaction fee. And we're going to see more and more of this usage, not only because it's faster and cheaper, but also because it's not using energy. So I believe in the future, we're going to have the blockchain of layer one, Bitcoin blockchain will secure our funds and secure our finances and give us the financial freedom. And the layer two will allow us to use very, very fast transaction at almost no cost, and on which we can develop lots of services and DeFi type of application.
Thanks. Jameson?
Yeah, I think that was all perfectly said, and I agree. Okay. I'll just say the world needs sound money. One that can't be manipulated. It has to be decentralized. Cannot have large pools of capital that can manipulate it. And as Whit says, and I'll just repeat it, it's energy use is a feature and it's not a bug. So.
Okay. All right. So turning there specifically to China. So I guess Mustafa, this is a question for you, but by all means, I'm sure Romain will have a view, and Jameson as well, if you'd like to chip in. With China leaving the mining industry, do we consider that good or bad news? As you'd referenced earlier, a lot of the mining that happens in China is really centrally located in Xinjiang and Sichuan. And Sichuan really uses hydro, which is renewable. So we assume mining there is great. But when you have a leader like this exiting the market, what does that mean for the rest of us?
I think the question is, it really depends on where do you compare it to? I mean, where do you compare China to? But let's look at China as a whole. Like we mentioned earlier, in Qinghai, Sichuan region, it's almost 100% renewable, especially during the summertime. But even during the winter time, right? If you look at Xinjiang, you get a region where traditionally it was mostly fossil fuel, but in the recent year, China have been going very aggressive on carbon neutral target. And then so take last year as an example, Xinjiang grid at the peak reached 51% renewable energy, and that was from wind and the solar. And so in China, we have been always looking at the waste energy and excessive energy whenever possible, and majority of the time they come in the form of renewable energy. As we expand globally and look at other markets, you look at Russia, US, Canada, Northern Europe, Central Asia. So it really depends on where you compare it to. If you compare it to Siberia in Russia and some part of the states, definitely they have more renewable energy that's being used in Bitcoin mining. But if you look at some of the countries like in Central Asia, take Kazakhstan, majority of it is also currently fossil fuel. So as we expand globally, I do think it depends on the region.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, and Kat, I think part of the question was also in regards to decentralization. I think we all know that there were lots of miners, a lot of hash rate in China, and I do think overall decentralization is a net win. And there was a lot of FUD around China being able to 51% attack, and so we just don't see that anymore. And it's kind of like, all right, what's the next thing that we're gonna have to talk about? And we're talking about it right now. But at Compass, we actually we love decentralization. We absolutely love democratization. So this means taking it away from not just 30 or 40 power players in the industry and allowing anyone to mine Bitcoin. So you can mine with us with just one unit. You can buy one unit. It's, let's say it's $10,000 to use a round number. And you don't have to be in an investment firm, syndication, institution, where there's just 30, 40 of those major decision makers to get started. So democratization.
Okay.
And I totally agree with that. If I could add one thing that is important also in the Chinese exodus from the miners' Chinese exodus is that we've seen that the Bitcoin network was reacting extremely well to this change of the hash rate, or the change of number of miners trying to win the block. We went from 150 or 160 exahash to 70 exahash. Now we are back up to 120 exahash. The network works. It's secure. There's no issue. It has not been. It has not had any issues from this kind of situation. So I think it's a very positive way. On top of that, as Jameson was saying, China has less mining power, so it's better for decentralization because now it's more distributed in the world, which I think is a big win for for the Bitcoin. However, I think it's a devastating news for miners because that's our industry. That's we are all working towards that direction. I think what we do, miners, it's a difficult work. I mean, we are managing electricity, we are managing computers, we need to manage lots of these computers. We are also providing lots of security to the network. We, the miners, are the one who are securing the network. We are the one who are also issuing Bitcoin to the market in the same way that the central bank will put new bills on the market. That's what we are doing. We are also securing all of the transactions. So we do an amazing work doing it. We're doing it in a decentralized way. There is no leader. It's a consensus. We vote every time about the blockchain. Every 10 minutes, it's a vote. We vote at 51% to write the new information we will put in the block. So when I see a country or a zone decided to ban the miners, it hurts me. Not only for the miners who do the work, but also for the concept of blockchain in a way, which is bringing more decentralization in a world that needs it. So I hope China will come back to that decision and allow again miners, because yes, they have energy that is renewable. I think also if you look concretely or precisely in the number of energy that is used in China for mining versus the energy that is used for everything else, closing the miners in China is not the solution. It's not going to change anything in your energy consumption at the China level. So there is maybe something else going on. Maybe they are going to work on their own currency, but at the same time, I mean, I'm very in awe towards the Chinese miners because they've been able to relocate very, very quickly and very efficiently. So for that, it's great to learn from them because they were one of the first to start mining at scale. What we see now, however, which is interesting in the subject of environment, is that when the Chinese miners are moving, they are also being more efficient. And when they move to the US and to Canada, the infrastructure that we have is more efficient, and more efficient means better energy use. So I think it's going to be a win also in that case. It's going to bring more renewable energy in the mining mix.
And just to answer at the same time one of the questions asked in the chat, so were there other destinations apart from US, Canada, where the Chinese miners started to go to benefit from renewable energies, you know? Or it's mostly Canada or, you know, California, I don't know, or Midwest?
I think in the state, mostly looking at like Texas and New York, but globally, I think this time it's truly getting really diverse. I know miners were going to Africa, Russia, Central Asia, Northern Europe, Canada, and also Southeast Asia. So, I mean, like Jameson said earlier, it is actually really good for Bitcoin's decentralization in the long run, for sure.
Thank you.
And if I can add, I'm sorry, I'm always adding something, but
okay.
I think we're going to see that even more in the world where it's going to be distributed everywhere. It's going to be on-grid, off-grid, in different kind of countries. We're going to see like crazy implementation of the energy. Anyone who has energy today, I'm sure is asking ourselves, how can I mine Bitcoin? How can I do crypto? So we're going to see more and more operation being built up on energy mix that exists somewhere. It's going to be reusable, renewable, nuclear, you name it. But we're going to see more and more implementation from everywhere in the world. And today's Chinese miners are going everywhere they can. I mean, they have lots of mining power they need to redistribute, and there's not enough capacity to get all of the miners. So we're going to see, we've seen the hash rate going from the top to 70 exahash. It's going back up. I think it went up back to 180. Then now it's averaging around 150 exahash. We're probably going to see a huge increase of exahash in the coming months and coming years. But there is a cap on how many electrical equipment and how many operations can host new miners. So we're going to see more pop-up mining center popping up everywhere and from different kind of person. Bottom line, everyone or most of the people want to add Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And one of the best way to add Bitcoin on your balance sheet is to make them because you make them cheaper than what you can buy them. In 2020, for example, at CCU, in electricity price, we were making a Bitcoin at around $8,000. So you do the math.
Yeah, I'll add.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, and then I'll ask the question.
I'll just add to that. I think the industry is so nascent, and everyone is learning right now. You can create a major facility like Windstone is doing in Rockdale, and you can create a small facility. Everybody's figuring out what the facility, site, energy mix is. It's kind of like we're all developing a playbook, and everyone in the space is, whether they think it or not, a hobbyist, and they're figuring out, okay, how do I build these racks? How do I build these cooling systems? And everyone's tinkering and toying, and it's just going to become more and more efficient.
So we have a question from the audience, and this is actually the perfect time to ask it. So Romain, you were basically referencing, the usage of energy that would otherwise have been wasted. And yes, there is an economic argument to this, and yes, it makes sense. So can you point us to any data points, metrics, or any form of monitoring that's been going on so that we can see how much of that energy would actually have been wasted and where the netting has happened?
Well, I would say the best sources are the ones that anyone knows. I mean, you have the BMC, Bitcoin Mining Council, who's releasing information on that. You have Cambridge was also released some information on the waste energy. Precisely, I don't have any specific data to point to, but it's really a trend that we see more and more, where people are going to use the standard gas or this kind of energy. Was it the question? Was it the question, or?
I mean,
yes,
if that's the answer, yeah. Then yes, that's the question.
Okay. Well, that's my answer.
So, and another question as well, Romain, and anyone as well, because you were saying that the best way to be exposed to Bitcoin is to mine them. One of the questions is referring that, as an investment advisor, should you advise basically to buy Bitcoin mining stocks, especially as CCU is going to be listed tomorrow, right? Or, buy Bitcoin to maximize return?
So if I start with this, I mean, I can't give an advice to buy our stock, unfortunately. However, I would say the smarter thing is to do both. Hedge your risk, buy Bitcoin, and invest in Bitcoin mining, because Bitcoin mining stock, interestingly, not only we are producing Bitcoin for cheap, for less money than what we have, but we are also having a HODL strategy. So we are keeping our Bitcoins and we are creating Bitcoins on our balance sheet, like MicroStrategy, like Tesla, like SpaceX, like lots of banks and insurance right now who are buying Bitcoin by like 10 million, 50 million. They are putting crypto and Bitcoin on their balance sheet the same way they would put a real estate or gold on their balance sheet. So it makes sense for the company. So I think if you want to invest in the space, invest in Bitcoin and invest in mining stock.
Okay.
Thanks. Any comment from Jameson or Mustafa? No? Okay.
Nope. All right.
Go ahead, Mustafa.
No, I was just going to say, before Compass Mining, if anyone asks us this question, I always told them probably don't get into Bitcoin mining as an individual. It's extremely difficult to locate an industrial scale site at a reasonable price, and the machine too. But I think Compass really did make it pretty accessible for a lot of people to directly mine to.
So that actually,
Compass is great. Yeah.
Thanks for the plug.
No, but it's a great concept. Yeah.
I wasn't sure how many people had heard of it. I wasn't sure how many people had heard, since we're under a year old, and don't mean to overshill the company. So it sounds like our media and marketing team are doing a wonderful job.
So what is the checklist that one person needs to check prior, going with Compass? Like in Hong Kong, it seems, from my perspective, electricity costs a lot compared to other countries. So, what do you need to check, with your electric provider and so on, in order to go for, investing those 10,000 US into the hardware to mine Bitcoin?
I think, if I understood the question correctly, is how do we select our sites so that we can pass on the lower hosting and electricity costs?
It's more for anyone to be able to mine what a person should check on their hand to make sure, you know, it's feasible.
Oh,
it takes care of everything. Yeah.
Got it. Well, okay. So first of all, if you're mining at home, you want to make sure you have a amenable, loving partner that doesn't mind a lot of heat and a lot of noise. So that's step one. You need a 220 outlet. So in the US, you know, you may need an electrician to set that up, or you know, build it out in your garage. So I said hobbyist, whereas, you know, in Europe, that's not necessarily an issue. Ventilation to make sure, filtration to make sure the you know, unit's not getting dusty. And you honestly have to be very technically savvy. If there's any issues, like, what are you going to do? These things have 12-month warranties on them if you're buying them new, and you can send them back to the manufacturer or, you know, a you know, Bitmain certified repair center, but you're not guaranteed to have that unit back for, you know, maybe months, depending on their workload. It's kind of like if you were a gamer back in the day and your PlayStation didn't work, you had to send it to China, and that took months. So I think that covered a few of the bases there.
If I could add, look at your electricity price. This is the most important thing you should look at. How much you're going to pay per kilowatt hour.
Of course.
Most of the place in the world, it's going to be too expensive, and you're going to lose money in the long run, because you need to take into account the cost of the miners. If you're buying a $10,000 miner, you need to think about how long do I need to mine until I can repay this miner, which is after that you will make your profit. And electricity cost in that regard is the most important thing you will need to look at, to make sure that your investment is an interesting investment, and that you're not only mining for the sake of mining.
Yeah, that is a very important point, and that's why selecting these hosting facilities that have cheap power and, you know, renewable or carbon neutral is great, but you may not necessarily be able to get that power price at your house unless you live, you know, in Washington, or it's not available to retail customers anymore. And for all intents and purposes, where hash rate is today and where Bitcoin price is today, it's a good scenario to be in generally, but that may not always be the case. And if you buy a unit, have it shipped to your house, you may be out of luck depending on the environment.
Also think about the noise. It's very noisy. I mean, it's like a two fans that are working 24/7. It's going to produce heat, but it's also going to make an interesting noise in your home if you want to have a miner in your own apartment.
Actually, you know what? We just released on YouTube a Bitcoin miner white noise 4-hour loop. So if you have a young one and you want them to fall asleep to a Bitcoin miner, you can put that on, which is nice.
That I'll be sure to share that with my friends who are maybe looking for that kind of additional benefit, you know, when they think about their mining operations. The next question we have, and this is one that I particularly like, is Marathon experimented earlier this year with FTAHK compliant mining, and this concept was apparently overwhelmingly rejected by the community. Do you, any of you, all of you, contemplate an environment where a two-tier system could emerge, where we'd have clean Bitcoin or tainted Bitcoin? And is it actually even possible to mark the coin in such a manner? Anybody?
You want me to go? For myself, I am against this dissociation. I believe we should keep the fungibility of the token. It's one Bitcoin. There is no one Bitcoin that is good, that is a Bitcoin that is not good. Also remember that already 18 million Bitcoins has been mined. So there is no good reason why we should say this Bitcoin is good, this Bitcoin is not good. However, I believe we're going to see more pools using green or renewable miner only. There is an initiative like this called Terra Pool, that was made by Argo and DMG. I don't think it has been released yet. So we're going to see that happen more and more. There is also an interesting story that happened a few weeks ago, which was the first block that was mined, and there was a hex or text added in the block saying that it was the first block that was mined with a carbon negative miner. We don't know who did it. We don't know who mined it. We were probably going to check that soon, but it's going to be interesting to follow. But to come back to your first initial question, I think we should keep the one Bitcoin for all and not try to do a dissociation. What is good, what is bad? Who can say what is good, what is bad? We don't really know. Or we work toward the consensus of Bitcoin, and this is what we should keep going, I think.
Jameson, Mustafa, do you have some perspective?
I generally agree with Romain's statement. However, in the real operational world, right, we have also faced a lot of miner face dilemma. I'll take an example. You can go to some countries in the Middle East where mining is extremely cheap, but like take Iran, it is sanctioned, and that is somewhere we definitely will not go as a corporation. And I think that really get into another layer of philosophical question, but just from compliance and operational perspective, that is unfortunately something, even as a Chinese miner, we will not do as of now.
Yeah, I guess my perspective is it's just going to happen naturally as we all move towards a more sustainable grid. You know, many countries have these 2050 targets, and I think adding new power generation with Bitcoin mining will assist with that. I think more consumption is a good thing because, you know, as Romain said, when you pair it with miners, it justifies the build out. And so I think more consumption will lead to an overall pool of cleaner energy mix. I think the fungibility is extremely important. I don't think as a sound money, Bitcoin will be tagged in a certain way. That's just my opinion. It's not like a diamond where you're saying, I don't want this from Africa, or I don't want a man-made diamond that is perfect and pristine and pure. There's no gemology services for Bitcoin. It's just a perfectly fungible money. So I don't see that happening.
Great, we have time for one last question. And Emma or me, so I'll ask because Emma's on mute. In terms of Bitcoin use cases, payments, investments, and even more, compared to the banking system, this all seems like it's a fraction of the energy usage. And that's a statement that, Kathy Wood and ARK Invest has been like all over here. What's your analysis of the position that they've taken? That basically Bitcoin uses less than traditional finance does.
If I can start, I think it's a very good analogy, and I think it's very interesting that they were able to do this comparison, because we need to compare apple with apple. And when we compare the energy use of Bitcoin network, it's way less than the whole financial system. Because when you want to do a transaction that is not decentralized, that is not peer-to-peer, you need to relate on lots of third parties that will, each of them will use lots of energy mix. Not only the energy mix, but also it's a security issue, because every time there is a new player in the chain, you just increase the risk of security, the risk of not the risk, but the time it will take to do a transaction. So in that essence, or in that way, I think this comparison was very interesting, and I really believe that we miners actually are working into the direction of a better and a more sustainable world for the years to come. And I think if we should point an actor who is not doing great for the environment, we should not look at Bitcoin, because we are using more renewable mix. We are negligible in comparison to the energy mix or the energy that is used in the world. And when we compare to other systems like the financial system, but another point of comparing is also to the digital world. I mean, why is that okay to use Netflix and use lots of energy to watch a Kardashian, and why is it not okay to use it to secure the financial world? In my opinion, I would rather put my eggs into financial securing the financial network like the Bitcoin, rather than continuing investing in that kind of mentality in a centralized world where someone else takes the decision for you. So I guess it was a very good analogy, and I'm happy they did it.
Great. The others, your views?
Yeah, I think the work Kathy Wood and our team has been doing is just phenomenal. I listened to a podcast yesterday, and I love how she calls herself an odd duck. And I 100% believe in the analysis they're putting out there. I think the banking system is old, it's antiquated. There's layers and layers of bloat and red tape and regulation that they have to adhere to. The stat I love is, it costs 3% to send money across the US 100 years ago, by horse and buggy, and it still costs 3%. How is that possible?
And it's closed on weekends.
Yeah, and it's closed on weekends. So.
Or after hours, or
after hours,
public holidays, or whatever.
And if
Mustafa,
anybody's ever tried
to
send international wires, it's the most friction-filled operation there is, and it just more and more people are waking up to things like stable coins and the Lightning Network. It is inevitable, in my opinion, and it's going to improve commerce and overall viability.
And give us financial freedom, where we're going to be able to access our money way faster, the way we want. I think it's important to dissociate the state and your money, and Bitcoin is bringing this. One thing that I think will be interesting to follow is what's happening in Salvador. They are starting to use the Bitcoin as a legal tender, but not only the Bitcoin, but also they have an application with a Lightning Network solution. And it's very interesting because it's allowing a circular economy in which you can use your Bitcoin to pay stuff, but also to receive money on your own. And in that respect, it's going to change the way we use Bitcoin, because so far we still have this mentality of not willing to spend our Bitcoin. I mean, we all have this idea or this image in our mind of the 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizza that was made in 2010. And you're like, okay, do I want to pay my coffee with Bitcoin if I know that it's going to be worth way more in the future? But when you start with a circular economy on the Lightning Network, it's changing this mentality, because you're not only using Bitcoin, you are also receiving them. And what's happening in Salvador, it's exactly this right now. So it's going to be interesting to follow and to see how in the coming months, the country and the inhabitants of the country are going to use this network even more.
Yeah, and I also agree. I do think, like, as industry going more renewable, the argument on whether or not the energy consumption makes sense is essentially whether or not Bitcoin itself have a purpose. And I think everyone on this panel, including myself, absolutely think that it has a huge purpose. And especially I myself, growing up, and I stayed in the past in Central Asia and spent a lot of time in emerging countries. And I think, take Turkey as an example, it have a very large crypto adoption rate, and that is for a reason, right? Like, people are using Bitcoin for remittance purpose sometimes, and for payment, and for hedging against the local inflation and other risks. And so I do think that in the long run, this argument will slowly phase out.
Thank you. Kat,
Thank
do you want
you
to wrap
all.
up?
Sure. I was going to say, I think we've hit time. So thank you for staying just that little bit longer. And thank you all to all of the members of FinTech Association for joining us. I guess just the last thing, do we have time for one more question, Emma, or no? We're just going to leave it.
I think just leave it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jameson. Thank you, Romain. Thank you, Mustafa, for your time.
Thank you.
It was hugely informative. I think we've all learned a lot, and we all understand that there are ways to keep Bitcoin sustainable and green. I'm sure you'll probably have many requests on LinkedIn and other ways of finding you. So watch this space, and we hope we're in touch with you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was fun. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a
Bye-bye.
good day, panelists.
Have a good day.
And everyone in Hong Kong, have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.